the loan that nearly buried a veteran. Samuel Brooks had survived war, factory closures, layoffs, flooded basements, a cancer ward, and the slow fading of the woman he loved. But at 78 years old, in a small Ohio town that called itself patriotic every 4th of July, he almost did not survive a loan he never signed. It did not begin with police lights or a courtroom. It began with a phone call from Buckeye Community Bank, a woman using his full legal name, and a sentence that made the kitchen floor feel suddenly unsteady. She said the payments were overdue. Samuel Brooks had been making payments all his life: mortgage payments, truck payments, hospital payments, utility payments, donations to the Veterans Hall when the roof leaked and nobody wanted to admit the hall was broke. He understood owing money. He understood paying it back. What he did not understand was the business loan tied to Miller Lawn and Stone, a landscaping company owned by his great-nephew, Travis Miller. The woman on the phone said Samuel Brooks had signed as guarantor. Samuel told her there had been a mistake. The woman said his signature was on the papers. By supper, Samuel had checked the metal box where he kept every bill, every insurance notice, every bank statement, and every warranty card for appliances he no longer owned. By midnight, he had checked it again. By morning, he knew two things with the certainty old men are often denied. He had not guaranteed Travis Miller's loan, and someone had used his name as if a lifetime of honor were nothing more than ink on a form. Travis Miller had been the young man Samuel tried to save from himself. He was not a son. Samuel and Elaine Brooks never had children. Travis was the grandson of Samuel's late sister's daughter, one of those relatives who appeared at reunions, funerals, and emergencies, usually in that order. He had charm, quick apologies, soft hands, and the talent some troubled men possess for making their own failures sound like bad weather. Samuel had fed him, housed him, loaned him tools, repaired his truck, introduced him at the Veterans Hall, and told the old men there that Travis was trying to build something decent. Travis smiled when Samuel said it. He smiled the way men do when they are happy to borrow another person's faith. Then Travis disappeared. The bank letters came. The collection calls began. And the town that had once praised Samuel Brooks for service, discipline, and sacrifice started asking whether maybe the old veteran had signed more than he remembered. Some people said family business was complicated. Some said he had probably helped Travis and now regretted it. Some said a man should pay his debts whether he liked the outcome or not. Few said it softly, as if soft suspicion was not suspicion. Others said it with the hard satisfaction of people who enjoy discovering that a respected man might have been foolish. Samuel did not lose his house in a dramatic eviction. Nobody came to the porch and threw his furniture onto the lawn. That would have been easier to understand. He lost sleep. He lost appetite. He lost the easy nods at the pharmacy and the quiet certainty that when he said a thing was true, people would believe him. He lost the right to be the author of his own name. But forgers depend on speed. They depend on shame. They depend on old people paying to make trouble go away. Travis Miller and the people who helped him had counted on Samuel Brooks being too embarrassed, too tired, too alone, and too honorable to fight. They made one mistake. Samuel Brooks had spent his life fixing machines. He knew that when something broke, you did not curse the whole engine. You followed the line. Bolt to bracket, wire to fuse, signature to date, date to camera, camera to witness, witness to truth. And buried inside a careless loan file were the things the liars had not respected. A signature that leaned wrong, a notary entry with an impossible time, a copy of a driver's license that did not quite match, VA clinic records from the same morning, a young teller who remembered a man at the counter who was not Samuel Brooks, and a gas station camera that had no reason to lie. By the time the truth came out, the town would learn that honor is not proved by paying another man's lie. Sometimes honor is proved by standing still while everyone calls you difficult and letting the evidence walk toward daylight. Before the loan, Samuel Brooks lived a narrow life, but not an empty one. His house sat on Cedar Line Road in a neighborhood of modest ranch homes tilted mailboxes, and porches where American flags faded faster than anyone admitted. The siding on his house needed washing. The maple out front dropped leaves into the gutter every fall. The back step wobbled in damp weather, though Samuel fixed it twice a year and cursed the wood rather than admit his knees were the part getting weaker. Inside, everything had a place. Tools hung on the garage wall in outlines. Elaine had once teased him for drawing with a pencil. Bills lived in a metal box under the desk. Receipts went into labeled envelopes. Spare fuses sat in an old coffee tin. Elaine's photograph stood beside the kitchen sink, where morning light touched the glass in a way that made her seem almost present when he poured the first cup of coffee. Elaine Brooks had been gone 7 years. She had survived breast cancer once, then not survived the second thing that came for her. Samuel had been a mechanic in the Army, not a nurse, but he learned medication schedules, nausea triggers, insurance language, the sound of fear hidden under cheerfulness, and how to sit in a hospital room without asking questions that could not be answered. After she died, people told him to keep busy. That was what people said when they did not know what to do with a widower who still set a second mug near the coffee pot for 3 weeks. Samuel did keep busy. He fixed wheelchairs at the Veterans Hall. He repaired walkers, replaced loose bolts, rewired lamps, sharpened mower blades for men who should not have been mowing anymore, and sometimes changed batteries in smoke detectors for widows who pretended they had called him because of the latter, and not because they wanted 10 minutes of company. The Veterans Hall sat behind the old post office, a low brick building with bad plumbing, better memories, and a flagpole that clanged in the wind. Men gathered there to drink coffee, tell stories they had already told, complain about the VA, and avoid admitting that some mornings they came simply because a room full of familiar voices could keep the silence from winning. Samuel was not the loudest man there. He rarely told war stories. He preferred to work in the side room where broken things were set aside with scraps of tape that said, "Ask Sam." A walker with a bad break, a wheelchair with a bent footrest, a folding table with one leg gone loose. Repairs made sense. People said machines were complicated, but Samuel thought people were worse. A machine did not pretend a crack was kindness. A machine did not sign your name when you were 90 miles away. Maria Alvarez ran the Veterans Assistance Desk out of the hall 2 days a week. She was 45, with dark hair usually pinned in a way that failed by noon, and a voice that could be gentle or blunt depending on which one would do the most good. Her father had served in Vietnam and spent the rest of his life trusting no institution without getting a copy in writing. Maria inherited his suspicion and sharpened it into a profession. She helped veterans file benefits claims, appeal denials, find transportation, request records, and understand letters written by agencies that seemed to believe plain language was a national security risk. Samuel respected her because she never called him dear, never thanked him for his service in that empty public way, and never treated paperwork as if it were beyond him. "Paper isn't smart," she once told a room full of older veterans. "It's just patient. Read it before you sign. Keep a copy after you sign. And if someone tells you there isn't time to read it, that is exactly when you should sit down and read every word." Samuel believed that. He believed it so deeply that what happened later humiliated him before it frightened him. He should have seen it sooner. He should have noticed the missing envelope mattered. He should have trusted the cold feeling in his stomach the first time Travis asked too many questions about credit. Travis Miller arrived in February with a duffel bag, a cracked phone screen, and an apology that sounded practiced but not entirely false. Snow lay in dirty ridges along the road. Samuel opened the door because Travis had called from the bus station and because Elaine, had she been alive, would have said no one should be left out in freezing weather if there was a spare room. Travis was 32, though he still carried himself like a young man waiting for someone else to impose structure. He wore a work jacket with a landscaping company logo stitched over the pocket, and his beard had grown in unevenly. He said he had been laid off after the company lost contracts. He said his girlfriend had taken the apartment lease. He said he was tired of messing up. He said the exact things a lonely older man wants to hear from a younger relative who still might become decent. Samuel gave him the spare room for 3 weeks. 3 weeks became 5 months. At first, Travis helped. He shoveled the walk after a late snow. He drove Samuel to the hardware store when the truck battery died. He sat with old men at the Veterans Hall and asked about their service in a way that made them expand in their chairs. He called Samuel Uncle Sam, though technically he was not, and everyone at the hall smiled at the joke because it fit the flags, the coffee, and the need older men have to believe the young still want them around. Travis talked about starting a landscaping business. Not just mowing lawns, he said, but retaining walls, drainage work, spring cleanup contracts, snow removal in winter. He had a plan. He showed Samuel numbers on a yellow legal pad. Used trailer, 2 mowers, salt spreader, hand tools insurance, a business name, Miller Lawn and Stone. Samuel was skeptical. He had spent years around men who mistook wanting work for building a business. But Travis seemed different in those first weeks. He woke early when Samuel knocked. He cleaned the gutters. He took notes when Samuel explained how to price repairs honestly. He went to Buckeye Community Bank with a folder under his arm and came back saying they might consider a small equipment loan if he could show a contract pipeline. "Don't overborrow," Samuel told him. "I won't," Travis said. "I'm trying to do this right." Those words mattered to Samuel. He had known men who came home from war with nothing but a chance to do one thing right and spent the rest of their lives trying. He wanted Travis to have that chance before everybody decided he was finished. The first line in the machine cracked quietly. Samuel kept a desk in the back bedroom, the room Elaine had once used for sewing. He no longer sewed anything, but he kept the desk because her hands had moved across it for years, pinning fabric, marking hems, writing Christmas cards in a careful slant. In the top drawer, Samuel stored an envelope containing photocopies of his driver's license, Medicare card, VA card, Social Security Award letter, and a utility bill. Maria Alvarez had helped him gather them for a veteran's property tax exemption review. One Tuesday, the envelope was gone. Samuel searched the drawer, then the folders below, then the whole desk. Travis found him standing in the room with the drawer pulled open and a look on his face that made him seem older than he was. "Everything okay?" Travis asked. There was an envelope here. "What kind of envelope?" "Copies, my license, utility bill, VA papers." Travis leaned against the doorframe. "Maybe you moved it to the metal box." Samuel had already checked the metal box. "Maybe I did," he said, because the alternative was saying he did not know whether to suspect his own mind or his guest. That was one of the first cruelties of age. Every lost object arrived with a witness for the prosecution. A younger man misplaces an envelope and calls it distraction. An older man misplaces an envelope and feels the room waiting to see whether this is the beginning of decline. The envelope did not turn up. Samuel told himself copies were not cash. He told himself Travis had no reason to take them. He told himself if he made suspicion a habit, the spare room would become a prison for both of them. A week later, Travis asked whether Samuel had ever co-signed anything. Samuel looked up from cleaning a carburetor. "No, not even for family, especially not for family." Travis laughed too quickly. "I was just asking. Bank forms are wild. They make it sound like everybody needs somebody. Then make the business smaller," Samuel said. "A man who needs somebody else's signature to start may not be ready to start." Travis's face changed for half a second. Hurt, maybe, or resentment. Then the smile returned. "You're right," he said. "I hear you." Samuel wanted to believe that too. The loan closed on March 14. Samuel did not know it at the time. On March 14, he woke before dawn and drove to the Cleveland VA clinic for an eye appointment. He hated interstate driving now, especially in gray weather, but his vision had been blurring in the right eye, and Maria had insisted he keep the appointment. He checked in at 9:42 a.m., sat beneath a television playing a home remodeling show with no sound, and had pressure tests, dilation drops, and a lecture about keeping his follow-up appointment. At 10:20 a.m., while Samuel Brooks was sitting in an exam room with his pupils wide, and his eyes watering under fluorescent light. Someone signed his name at Buckeye Community Bank. That someone did not have Samuel's injured thumb. He did not have the old tremor Samuel developed after years of tools and cold weather. He did not form the capital B, with the blunt downward line Elaine used to say looked like a fence post. But he had a copy of Samuel's driver's license, a similar jacket, and enough confidence to move quickly through a process that should have moved slowly. The loan officer was Gary Phelps. Gary Phelps was 38. With a salesman's smile and thinning hair, he combed forward with determination. He had joined Buckeye Community Bank after failing to move up at a larger regional bank in Columbus. In a small town, he discovered that looking ambitious could pass for being competent, at least for a while. He sponsored a little league team, shook hands at Chamber of Commerce breakfasts, and used phrases like local growth and relationship lending as if the bank were not also counting quarterly numbers. Travis had found him useful. Gary liked borrowers who came with a story and an urgency he could dress up as opportunity. Miller Lawn & Stone was small, risky, and under-collateralized, but Travis had spoken of pending contracts, family support, and an older relative with stable assets who believed in the business. Gary saw a loan that could close if everyone stopped asking questions at the right moment. Jasmine Reed asked one question. Jasmine was 23, new at the branch, and still young enough to think rules meant something, because nobody had yet taught her which rules managers ignored when goals were behind. She was asked to scan identification and prepare part of the file. She noticed the older man with Travis kept his baseball cap low when they entered. She asked him to remove it for the lobby camera. He looked irritated. Travis laughed. He's old school, doesn't like cameras. The man lifted the cap for half a second. Jasmine saw gray hair, heavier cheeks, and eyes that did not settle where Samuel's eyes later would. She did not know Samuel then. She only knew the moment felt wrong. The man signed quickly. Too quickly for someone taking on a loan that could swallow a lifetime of savings. Jasmine mentioned it to Gary Phelps when the man left. Gary gave her the smile managers use when they want obedience to feel like teamwork. Family guarantor, he said. Matches. Denise already reviewed the approval. We can't treat every elderly customer like a criminal because he doesn't enjoy paperwork. I wasn't. I know, Gary said, already turning away. You're doing fine. Just don't create problems where there aren't any. There are sentences young employees remember because they teach them how power works. Jasmine remembered that one. The money was dispersed. Equipment was bought. Some of it was real. A trailer, a mower, a used skid steer that cost more to repair than Travis admitted. Some of the money went elsewhere. Past due credit cards, cash withdrawals. A payment to a man named Ricky Holt, who had once worked with Travis at a warehouse and looked enough like an older relative to fool people determined to be fooled. Travis came home that evening with takeout fried chicken and a grin. Financing came through, he said. Samuel was surprised. Without a guarantor, smaller loan. Different structure. Gary at the bank worked it out. Samuel should have asked to see the papers. He did not. The loan was Travis's business. A man who has spent decades minding his own obligations can mistake not interfering for respect. He ate the chicken. Travis thanked him for believing in him. Samuel said he hoped the business would be built on more than hope. Travis laughed and said it would be. For 2 months, Miller Lawn & Stone looked legitimate from a distance. Travis parked equipment behind a rented lot near the feed store. He printed flyers. He got a few cleanup jobs from people who knew Samuel. He bought a magnetic sign for the truck and came by the Veterans Hall in work boots, talking about bids, fuel costs, and how hard it was to find reliable help. Some of the older men liked him. They liked his confidence. They liked that he called Samuel family. They liked believing their town still produced second chances. Samuel liked seeing Travis try. That was the hardest part to admit later. It would have been easier if Travis had been rotten from the beginning. He was not. He was lazy sometimes, evasive sometimes, too quick with charm. But he also fixed a broken ramp rail at the hall without being asked. He carried groceries for Mrs. Dooley across the street. He's beside Samuel one night while a storm rolled through and listened to a story about Elaine without checking his phone once. Human beings are rarely convenient villains. That is why betrayal hurts so much. It comes mixed with memories that argue for the person who wounded you. By June, Travis was gone more often. He said work ran late. He said a contract in another county might change everything. He stopped eating breakfast at Samuel's table. The rented lot looked emptier each time Samuel drove by. Then one Friday, Travis packed the duffel bag. "Got the job near Cincinnati," he said. "Temporary. Good money. I'll be back and forth. Stored your equipment. Covered. All handled." Samuel watched him avoid eye contact and felt the old mechanic's instinct, a vibration before the part fails. "Travis, yeah? Don't make me regret trusting you." For once, Travis did not smile. "I won't," he said. He was gone the next morning. The bank called 4 months after the loan closed. Samuel thought it was a scam. The caller used the bank's name, but scammers used bank names. She said Miller, Lawn & Stone had missed payments and Samuel Brooks was liable as guarantor. Samuel told her she had the wrong man and hung up. Then he called Buckeye Community Bank directly. Denise Warren, the branch manager, returned his call an hour later. Denise was in her early 50s, careful, polished, and proud of being fair in a way that sometimes made fairness feel more like procedure than courage. She knew Samuel from seeing him in town. She had once thanked him for repairing her father's wheelchair brake. Her voice changed when she realized who the account involved. "Mr. Brooks," she said, "perhaps it would be best if you came into the branch. I didn't sign anything. I understand that's your position." Position. The word landed badly. Truth was truth when Samuel said it alone in his kitchen. At the bank, it became a position. The next morning, Samuel wore his cleanest button-down shirt, the gray one Elaine had liked, and drove to the branch. Buckeye Community Bank stood on Main Street, between the florist and the insurance office, with a mural of local history painted on the side wall. Inside, the carpet smelled faintly of rain and toner. Jasmine Reed was at a teller window. She looked up when Samuel entered, and something in her face tightened, though he did not know why. Denise led him to a glass-walled office. Gary Phelps was not there. Denise said he was out visiting a commercial client. She opened the scanned loan documents on her screen. Samuel saw Travis Miller's business name. He saw pages of terms. He saw the word guarantor. He saw his own name printed in boxes. Then Denise scrolled to the signature page. Samuel leaned forward. It looked like Samuel Brooks if a person only knew the shape of the name. It did not look like his hand. His signature had become rougher after he broke his thumb in 1999 when a transmission slipped. The S in Samuel usually began low and pulled upward. The forged S sat tall and proud, as if written by a younger hand trying to imitate old authority. The final S in Brooks curved neatly. Samuel's final S flattened into almost a line. "That isn't mine," he said. Denise folded her hands. The document was notarized. Then the notary was wrong, identification was provided. Then the identification was misused. "The bank will review your concern." Concern. Another word that lowered the temperature of truth until it became paperwork. Samuel asked who had been present. Denise said she could not discuss all internal personnel matters immediately. He asked for copies. She said the bank could provide the loan file through proper request. He asked whether he was still expected to pay. Denise hesitated. Then she said the obligation remained active pending investigation. Samuel heard Elaine's voice in his memory. "Sit still before you answer angry." He stood slowly. "I served 22 years in uniform and 31 in factories after that," he said. "I signed enough forms to know my own name. I did not sign yours." Denise's expression softened, but not enough. "We will investigate," she said. Outside, Samuel sat in the truck for 10 minutes before he could drive. By evening, half the town knew there was trouble with Travis Miller's loan. Small towns do not need facts to begin making meaning. They need a name, a debt, and somebody willing to say they heard something from someone close to the bank. At the pharmacy, the clerk who usually asked about Samuel's cat food purchase said almost nothing. At the diner, two men stopped talking when he came in. At the Veterans Hall, Earl Whitcomb, who had known Samuel for years and should have known better, made a joke about co-signing after too much bourbon. Samuel had not had bourbon in 12 years. Alcohol had become too easy after Elaine's diagnosis, so he quit before it could become a second illness in the house. Laughed because men often laugh when they are uncomfortable and want the discomfort to belong to someone else. Samuel looked at Earl until the laughter stopped. "Careful," he said. It was the only warning he gave. Collections letters arrived in envelopes with windows. The paper was thick, the language was cold. Past due, guarantor liability, accrued fees, potential recovery action, negative credit reporting. Samuel read them at the kitchen table under the light Elaine used for sewing. He understood enough to know the balance could eat the savings he had built from overtime, Army pension, Social Security, and a life of buying used instead of new. He called Travis 31 times in 2 weeks. Sometimes the phone rang. Sometimes it went straight to voicemail. Once Travis answered, breathing hard, as if he had run to escape the call. "You signed," Travis said before Samuel could speak. "I did not. You said you'd back me. I said I'd help you fix a truck. I said I'd introduce you to people. I never said I'd risk my house." "You always do this," Travis snapped. "You help just enough to make yourself feel noble, then act like everybody owes you perfection." Samuel was silent. The accusation was absurd, but it found an old wound anyway. Men who spend their lives trying to be useful can still fear they have failed the people they tried to help. "Come home and explain it," Samuel said. "I'm not coming back to be judged by a bunch of old men drinking burnt coffee." Then Travis hung up. The next day, Travis posted online that some people loved being heroes until real family needed help. He did not name Samuel. He did not have to. Cousins commented with vague hearts and prayers. One of Travis's friends wrote that older relatives always forgot what they promised. Samuel did not know how to fight a lie in a place where everyone could see it, and no one had to look him in the eye. For 3 nights, he slept in pieces. At 2 a.m, he woke with his heart hammering and walked to the desk to check the metal box. He reviewed bank accounts. He calculated worst cases on a yellow pad. He imagined liens, lawsuits, court papers, and men at the Veterans Hall avoiding his eyes because debt had made him smaller. On the 4th morning, he placed the first collection letter, the copy of the bank signature Denise had printed, and his own driver's license on the kitchen table. He stared at them until the room blurred. Then he did something that almost became his defeat. He considered paying. Not because he believed the debt was his. Not because he wanted to protect Travis. Because shame is a heavy thing, and older men raised on duty sometimes mistake silence for dignity. If he paid, the letters would stop. The town would have nothing new to chew. Travis's mess would become another private loss, filed away with the other things Samuel survived. He folded the letter into a square and put it in his shirt pocket. At the Veterans Hall that afternoon, Maria Alvarez found him sitting alone beside the trophy case. The hall was empty except for the hum of the soda machine and rain tapping against the high windows. Samuel did not look up when she approached. "You're hiding from me," she said. "I am sitting." Same thing when a man sits that still. He handed her the folded letter without speaking. Maria read it. Her face changed, not with surprise, but with recognition. She had seen this before. Not the same loan, not the same pattern. Younger relative. Older name, official paper. Shame used as rope. "I'm thinking of paying," Samuel said. Maria lowered the letter. "No, you're thinking of buying quiet. Quiet has value, not when it rewards the person who forged you." Samuel flinched at the word. Maria did not soften it. "Paying a forged debt doesn't make you honorable," she said. "It makes the forgery profitable." Those words gave him a place to stand. Maria did not ask whether he was sure. She asked when the calls began. She asked when Travis lived with him. She asked whether any identification documents had gone missing. Samuel told her about the envelope. Saying it aloud made him feel foolish and relieved at the same time. Maria pulled a legal pad from her bag. "We make a timeline," she said. "Not a speech, not a plea, a timeline." That became the first act of resistance. They listed dates. Travis arriving in February. Missing envelope. Questions about co-signing. March 14 VA appointment. Loan calls. Bank visit. Travis's disappearance. Collection letters. Social media comments. Maria wrote in block letters at the top, "Identity theft, forgery dispus." Samuel objected to the first phrase. "Identity theft sounds like somebody stole a password," he said. Maria looked at him. "They stole your name to borrow money. What else would you call it?" The next week became paper. Maria helped him file a police report. The officer at the desk was polite, but young enough to look uncomfortable, telling an old veteran that financial crimes took time. She helped Samuel submit a written dispute to Buckeye Community Bank. She helped him send certified letters requesting the complete loan file, all communications, all identification records, the notary information, and preservation of surveillance footage. She helped him freeze his credit with the major bureaus, place a fraud alert, and contact legal aid. Samuel hated every minute of needing help. But Maria never handled the papers over his head. She sat beside him, not in front of him. She explained each step. She had him sign only after he read. When his hand shook, she waited without pretending not to notice. "Shaking isn't weakness," she said once. "It's a body doing too much at once." He did not answer, but he kept the sentence. Buckeye Community Bank took 2 weeks to send the loan file. 2 weeks is not long to a bank. For Samuel, it was 14 nights of wondering whether another letter would arrive before breakfast. The file came by mail in a padded envelope. Samuel carried it unopened to the veterans' hall. Maria spread the pages across a table in the meeting room. The papers smelled of toner and authority. There was the loan application for Miller, Lawn & Stone. There was Travis's business plan, thin enough to be embarrassing. There were equipment invoices. There was a guarantee agreement bearing Samuel's printed name and forged signature. There was a copy of Samuel's driver's license, a utility bill, and a notary acknowledgement stating that Samuel Brooks personally appeared at Buckeye Community Bank on March 14, 10:20 a.m. Samuel tapped the date with one finger. "I was at the VA. Maria was already writing. They requested the clinic record." The VA did not move fast, but medical systems keep time because time can become treatment, billing, evidence, and liability. The appointment record showed Samuel checked in at 9:42 a.m., was taken for exam at 10:15, and checked out at 11:08. The clinic was outside Cleveland, more than 90 minutes from the bank in ordinary traffic. Samuel read the page 3 times. For the first time since the bank call, he felt the shape of solid ground. Maria said, "This is strong. Then they'll stop." Maria's face warned him before the phone did. The bank did not stop. Denise Warren said the information had been received and would be reviewed by the fraud department. The collections unit said its process was separate. A letter arrived warning that credit reporting might proceed. Samuel called Denise, and she used phrases that sounded careful enough to be fair, but not brave enough to be helpful. "Mr. Brooks, we understand your dispute. You have proof I was in Cleveland. We have documentation indicating execution at the branch. We need to reconcile the discrepancy. Someone signing my name while I'm under an eye machine isn't a discrepancy." Denise was quiet. Then she said, "I understand why you're upset." Samuel hung up before anger made him say something the bank could write down as instability. That afternoon, he found another mistake. The scanned driver's license copy looked right until he held it beside his actual license under a magnifying glass. The photograph was his. The license number was his. The address was his current address. But the expiration date seemed blurred, as if 2 copies had been layered or altered. The font spacing was slightly off. Samuel would not have noticed before. He noticed now because Maria had told him not to treat official-looking paper as holy. They made enlarged copies. Legal aid referred him to Peter Lang, an attorney in Columbus who handled elder financial abuse, identity theft, and messy disputes institutions preferred to label misunderstandings. Peter had once worked in a county prosecutor's office before moving into civil practice. He was not warm exactly, but he was precise, and Samuel trusted precise people more than friendly ones when money was involved. Peter Lang met Samuel and Maria in a conference room with a long table and a view of a parking lot. He listened without interrupting. He reviewed the forged signature, the VA record, the missing identification envelope, the license copy, the notary page, and the bank letters. Then he said something Samuel did not expect. The bank may be a victim here too, but that does not mean the bank acted properly. Maria smiled for the first time that day. Peter explained the tracks. The debt dispute was one track. The criminal investigation was another. Credit reporting was another. Potential bank negligence was another. Notary misconduct was another. Travis Miller's fraud, if proven, was another. Systems like to separate pain into categories. Samuel's job was to keep the facts connected. Peter sent formal preservation demands to Buckeye Community Bank, Gary Phelps, the notary, and Travis Miller's last known address. He demanded surveillance video, teller notes, internal emails, loan approval logs, identification verification records, electronic file metadata, phone recordings, and all communications involving Samuel Brooks or Miller Lawn and Stone. Buckeye Community Bank replied through counsel. Routine surveillance video was overwritten after 60 days. Peter read the letter aloud. Samuel felt the air leave the room. Then it's gone. Maybe, Peter said. Maybe? The bank says routine video is overwritten. We ask when the dispute was reported. We ask who received it. We ask why preservation wasn't triggered. We ask whether any exception clips were saved. We ask whether other cameras exist. We ask whether ATM lobby stills were retained. We ask whether third parties have footage. We ask until their answer becomes more expensive than the truth. Samuel looked at Maria. She nodded. This is why we don't pay for quiet. The bank's missing video became its own kind of evidence. Not proof of fraud by itself, but proof that the institution had failed to preserve something after Samuel disputed the signature early. Denise Warren became more guarded. Gary Phelps still did not return calls. The bank's letters grew more formal. Meanwhile, the town grew less formal by the day. Debt gossip is different from other gossip. It carries moral judgment. A man can be sick and still be respected. Grief can make people kind. But debt, especially debt linked to family, invites everyone to become a philosopher of responsibility. At church, a woman told Samuel she hoped he and Travis could work things out because family was precious. Samuel said family was not a permission slip. She blinked and walked away. At the grocery store, Earl Whitcomb's wife asked whether the bank might garnish his pension. Samuel left without buying bread. At the Veterans Hall, men spoke too loudly about other things when he entered. They wanted him there, but they did not know how to stand beside a man in a fight they did not understand. Some feared he really had signed. Some feared if they believed him, they would have to face how easily it could happen to them. Samuel stopped repairing wheelchairs for 3 weeks. That worried Maria more than the letters. She found him in his garage, sitting on a stool before a walker with one wheel removed. "You planning to finish that?" she asked. "Eventually. When my name belongs to me again." Maria did not scold him. She picked up the wheel, examined the axle, and handed it to him. "Your name isn't waiting at the bank," she said. "It's here too." He fixed the walker. First witness came from a place Samuel did not expect. Jasmine Reed sent Maria Alvarez a private message through the Veterans Hall page. She did not put much in writing. She asked whether Maria could talk somewhere away from the bank. Maria called Peter Lang before answering. Peter arranged to meet Jasmine in his office after hours. Jasmine arrived wearing jeans, a sweatshirt, and fear. She looked younger outside the bank. She sat with both hands wrapped around a paper cup of water and said she was not trying to cause trouble. Peter said trouble had already happened. Jasmine told them about March 14. Travis Miller, the man in the cap, the quick signature, her discomfort, Gary Phelps dismissing her concern. She remembered the man because he had snapped, "This is ridiculous," when asked to lift his head for the camera. She remembered Travis laughing too loudly. She remembered Gary saying the loan needed to close before equipment pricing changed. Was the man Samuel Brooks? Peter asked. Jasmine looked directly at Samuel. No, the word was simple. It did not clear the debt by itself. It did not erase the letters, but for Samuel it struck like a bell. Someone who had nothing to gain had looked at him and said what the town would not. Jasmine began to cry. I saw you come in later, she said, when you disputed it. You looked scared. I knew then. I should have said something sooner. Samuel did not know what to do with her guilt. He had too much of his own. You are saying it now, he said. Peter took a detailed statement. He advised Jasmine that retaliation could be unlawful, but also real. She said she understood. She had already started applying for jobs elsewhere. The second witness was less willing. The notary was named Carol Vance. She was a mobile notary who handled overflow signings for real estate closings, auto loans, and small business documents. Her journal showed Samuel Brooks appeared on March 14 at 10:20 a.m. at Buckeye Community Bank. The entry included a signature matching the forged guarantee, not Samuel's real signature. It listed identification as Ohio driver's license, but several required details were incomplete or abbreviated. Peter subpoenaed or formally requested what he could and sent a letter outlining the VA record. Carol Vance's first response was defensive. She said she had no reason to doubt the identification. She said bank staff presented the documents. She said the signer appeared willing. She said she followed usual practice. Usual practice, Peter said, was often where negligence went to hide. When pressed further, Carol admitted she had not independently compared the license to the man as carefully as she should have. Gary Phelps had told her the guarantor was elderly, did not like fuss, and had already been verified by the bank. She remembered the signer keeping his cap nearby and becoming impatient. She remembered Travis hovering. She remembered wanting to finish because she had another appointment. Did Gary Phelps tell you he personally knew Samuel Brooks? Peter asked in a recorded interview. Carol hesitated. He said he knew of him. He said the family relationship was clear. That answer mattered. Not enough alone. Enough in the chain. The police investigation moved slowly. The local detective assigned to the case had burglaries, domestic disputes, drug calls, and a mayor who liked quick answers. White-collar fraud involving a bank, a relative, a notary, and a missing borrower did not fit easily into anyone's afternoon. Samuel sometimes felt he had to prove not only the fraud, but the worthiness of fraud as a crime. Maria warned him. Nobody will care about your name as much as you do, she said. That's unfair. It's also why we keep pushing. Peter filed complaints with the bank's regulator channels and consumer protection offices. He disputed credit reporting formally. He sent copies of the VA record and Jasmine's statement to the bank's counsel. He requested any lobby camera stills, access logs, archived teller notes, and Gary Phelps's internal communications. Then Buckeye Community Bank made a mistake. It sent a letter saying its internal review showed procedures were followed based on documentation available at the time. Peter noticed the phrase. Based on documentation available at the time, he said. That usually means someone didn't look beyond the file. Maria leaned back in her chair, or didn't want to. Peter filed a more aggressive letter. He asked whether the bank had interviewed Jasmine Reed. It had not. He asked whether the bank had reviewed the VA medical record before sending its conclusion. It had not. He asked whether Gary Phelps had been the employee who confirmed the guarantor's identity before loan closing. The bank did not answer directly. Denise Warren called Samuel that evening, not from the bank's main line, but from a number he did not recognize. I shouldn't be calling, she said. Then why are you? Silence. I wanted you to know the matter has been escalated. That's a word. I know. Samuel waited. Denise exhaled. Mr. Brooks, I am not permitted to discuss internal personnel issues. But you should continue with your attorney. That was as close to courage as Denise could reach that day. Samuel did not thank her for doing less than enough, but he did not punish her for doing more than nothing. The next piece of evidence came from the road. Travis had used Samuel's old pickup several times while living at the house. Samuel had allowed it because Travis's truck needed repair, and because men who have tools sometimes forget that permission to borrow one thing can become permission in another. Man's mind to take more. On March 14, Travis was not in Samuel's truck. He was in a rented trailer rig later linked to the equipment purchase. A gas station near the bank had cameras covering the pumps and entrance. The owner, a former reservist named Don Mercer, had known Samuel for years and had once brought him a broken generator to fix. When Peter's investigator asked about footage, Don said most footage was overwritten, but the station saved clips connected to drive-offs and disputes. On March 14, there had been a fuel dispute at Pump 4 around the same time Travis and another man bought coffee inside. The clip existed because another customer argued about being charged twice. The camera did not care about Samuel Brooks. It had caught him by absence. At 9:55 a.m., Travis Miller entered the store with a gray-haired man wearing a cap and a tan work jacket similar to one Samuel owned. The man's face was partly visible when he turned toward the coffee counter. He was not Samuel. He was heavier through the jaw, moved faster, and used his right hand without stiffness. He laughed at something, Travis said. Don recognized him after a day. "That's Ricky Holt," he told the investigator. "Worked warehouse out by Newark. Trouble follows him like a dog." Ricky Holt had minor fraud convictions, unpaid fines, and a habit of doing small, dishonest favors for cash. Police found an old booking photo. It matched the gas station clip well enough to matter. When Detective Mallory, the local investigator, showed Samuel the still image, Samuel felt something close to nausea. The tan jacket looked like his because it was his. Travis had borrowed it from the hall closet during late winter and never returned it. Samuel had forgotten until he saw another man wearing his shape. The lie had not only used his name, it had dressed itself in his coat. That detail haunted him more than the signature. For a week after seeing the image, Samuel checked the closet each morning. The missing jacket became absurdly important. Elaine had bought it at a farm supply store because the old one had holes in both cuffs. He could see her holding it up, saying, "This color won't show grease as badly." As if grease had not been part of the marriage from the beginning. Travis had taken that too. Not for money, for disguise. The investigation tightened. Ricky Holt was located first. He denied everything until shown the gas station image and the VA record. Then he claimed he thought he was helping Travis pick up equipment papers, not committing fraud. He said he signed where people told him to sign, but did not understand what it meant. He said Gary Phelps was in the room part of the time, then corrected himself when asked whether Gary had seen him sign. He said he had been paid $200 and promised more after Travis's business cleared a bank thing. Fraud often turns men into storytellers of their own innocence. Ricky's story shifted 3 times in one interview. Each version damaged someone else more than the last. Travis was harder to find. He had gone south, then west, then back east, leaving unpaid bills and angry people in a path that looked less like escape than panic. Equipment purchased with the loan had been sold or traded. The used skid steer ended up with a contractor in Kentucky who insisted he had bought it in good faith. A mower was found behind a cousin's garage. The trailer was abandoned near a storage lot. Travis finally called Samuel from an unknown number. Samuel nearly did not answer. Something made him pick up. "You got lawyers now," Travis said. Samuel closed his eyes. "I have facts. You trying to send me to prison? You signed my name. I didn't sign it. You brought the man who did." Travis breathed into the phone. "You don't understand what it's like," he said. "Everybody thinks because you're old and steady, life was easy for you. You had the army, the factory, the house. I can't get ahead. Every time I try, something hits." Samuel looked at Elaine's photograph by the sink. "You think nothing hit me? That's not what I mean. You used my dead wife's house as collateral for your excuse." Travis's voice cracked then, but not enough to become honesty. "I was going to pay it, I swear. I just needed the loan to start. Gary said the guarantor thing was paperwork, that once the business ran, nobody would care." "Gary said to forge me?" "He said people do family guarantees all the time." That isn't an answer. Travis became angry because anger was easier than confession. You always wanted me to fail. No, Samuel said. I wanted you to grow up before your failures had victims. Travis hung up. Samuel wrote down the time of the call because Maria had trained him now. Time, date, exact words. Pain became evidence when properly recorded. Family pressure arrived next. A cousin named Darlene, Travis's mother, called from Dayton. She had not called Samuel in 11 months. Her first words were not hello. They were, "You're going too far." Samuel sat down. "My name is on a loan I didn't sign. Travis is scared. He should be. He's family. So am I," Darlene cried. She said Travis had always struggled. She said he had anxiety. She said jail would ruin him. She said Samuel had no children and could not understand a mother's fear. That last sentence found the cruelest door. Samuel and Elaine had wanted children. The first miscarriage happened before Vietnam, the second after. Then doctors used gentle words that meant no. Elaine carried the grief differently. Samuel carried it as a failure of protection, though nobody had asked him to protect her from biology. For years, relatives filled the silence with bad comfort. You can always adopt. You can enjoy your freedom. You can be the fun aunt and uncle. As if the shape of absence could be chosen by people standing outside it. Darlene knew enough to know where the wound was. Samuel's voice grew quiet. "Do not use my empty house to defend your son's crime." She sobbed harder. "He looked up to you." "No. He looked at what I had and decided it would be easier to borrow my life than build his." Darlene did not call again, but the damage remained. For days, Samuel felt contaminated by the conversation. He wondered whether he was being cruel. He wondered whether sending Travis into the criminal system would make him no better than the people who believed paper over him. He wondered whether Elaine would have urged mercy. Then Maria came to the house and found him staring at the phone. "Mercy after truth," she said when he told her. "Not mercy instead of truth." That became another sentence he kept. As evidence accumulated, Buckeye Community Bank shifted its posture. The collections letters stopped, though no one explained why. A temporary hold was placed on recovery. The bank's counsel requested more time. Gary Phelps went on leave. Denise Warren's voice became clipped, as if each call was being recorded by someone standing behind her. Jasmine Reed resigned. She got a job at a credit union 2 towns away. On her last day, she left the bank through the side door and cried in her car. Not because she loved the job, but because doing the right thing had cost her the idea that work would be fair if she followed the rules. Samuel sent her a handwritten note. It said, "You saw what was true before it's safe to say so. That counts." Jasmine kept the note in her glove compartment. Peter Lang prepared for a civil action if the bank did not clear Samuel fully. He also prepared Samuel for disappointment. Even strong evidence did not make institutions apologize quickly. They calculated exposure, reputation, insurance, recovery options, and whether the injured person had enough strength to keep pushing. "That's the part I hate," Samuel said. "What part?" "That being right isn't enough." Peter nodded. "Being right is the foundation. Pressure is the tool." The pressure increased when a local reporter called Maria. Someone had leaked that an elderly veteran was fighting a forged loan. Maria refused to discuss details without Samuel's consent. Samuel said no at first. He did not want his name in the paper beside debt. He did not want strangers measuring his humiliation over breakfast. Then the bank sent another carefully worded letter that did not yet release him from liability. Samuel changed his mind. The article appeared on a Sunday. Veteran disputes loan signature, raises questions about bank verification. It did not accuse anyone of crimes not yet charged. It quoted Samuel only once. "I know my own hand." It mentioned the VA clinic record, the missing identification copies, and the formal dispute. It noted that Buckeye Community Bank said it took fraud seriously and could not comment on active investigations. The town reacted like a man waking from a nap and pretending he had never slept. People who had avoided Samuel suddenly approached him with concern. Some said they'd always thought something seemed off. Some said Travis had never looked trustworthy. Some criticized the bank as if they had not been blaming Samuel a week earlier. Earl Whitcomb, who had made the bourbon joke, avoided him completely. At the Veterans Hall, the old men became loud in the opposite direction. "Should have known Sam wouldn't sign that trash," one said. "Bank ought to be ashamed," said another. Samuel did not enjoy it as much as they wanted him to. Their support felt like a coat handed over after the storm had already soaked him through. Still, the article helped. A retired employee from the bank called Peter anonymously and said Gary Phelps had been under intense pressure to grow the commercial loan portfolio. A former borrower said Gary had encouraged him to move paperwork along when a spouse was unavailable to sign a minor document, though that situation had not resulted in fraud. Another small business owner said Travis had bragged about having family backing before the loan closed. The bank could ignore Samuel more easily than it could ignore patterns. The police found Travis in Kentucky after a traffic stop, flagged an outstanding warrant related to equipment theft. He was brought back to Ohio. His first statement repeated the lie. Samuel had agreed, then denied it when the business failed. Detective Mallory showed him the VA clinic record. Travis said Samuel must have signed earlier. The detective showed him the notary entry. Travis said dates got mixed up. The detective showed him the gas station image of Ricky Holt wearing Samuel's jacket. Travis stopped talking. Gary Phelps hired an attorney and denied wrongdoing. He claimed he relied on identification presented by the borrower and notary. He claimed he had no reason to suspect fraud. He claimed any procedural gaps were minor administrative errors. But internal bank emails told a more complicated story. One email from Gary to Travis, sent 2 days before closing, said, "Need guarantor in branch or clean workaround by Thursday. Equipment invoice expires. Don't make this messy." Another, sent from Travis to Gary, said, "Uncle won't come in. He hates banks. Can we use prior docs?" Gary replied, "Bring ID copy. We can handle if family consent is understood." Family consent is understood. Peter Lang read that phrase 3 times. It did not say forge him. It did not need to. It showed Gary knew Samuel might not appear. It showed the bank employee moved forward anyway. It showed how respectable language can create a hallway for crime. Denise Warren had been copied on later approval summaries, not the incriminating emails. Her role became one of failure to supervise rather than direct participation. That mattered to Samuel because anger wants simple targets, but truth rarely gives them. Denise had doubted him. She had moved slowly. She had protected the institution longer than she should have. But she had not built the lie. Gary and Travis had built it. Ricky Holt had worn it. Carol Vance had stamped it. The bank had processed it. The town had believed it. That was enough. The turning point came in a meeting at Peter Lang's office with bank counsel, an insurance representative, Samuel, Maria, and a senior investigator hired by the bank after the story became public. The room was cold. Someone had placed a tray of pastries on the side table that nobody touched. Bank counsel began with concern. He said Buckeye Community Bank valued its customers. He said fraud was unfortunate. He said the bank was itself a victim of deceptive conduct by Travis Miller and potentially others. Samuel listened. Then Peter placed the documents in order. First, the missing ID envelope timeline. Then the guarantee. Then Samuel's known signatures. Then the VA clinic record. Then the forged notary entry. Then Jasmine Reed's statement. Then the altered driver's license copy. Then the gas station image. Then the email saying clean workaround. Then the bank's failure to preserve video after timely dispute. Then the collection letters sent after evidence had been provided. Each page made the bank's language smaller. The insurance representative asked whether Samuel had suffered measurable financial loss beyond attorney fees. Maria spoke before Samuel could. He has had collection threats, credit risk, sleep loss, reputational harm, and months of fear that a loan he never signed could consume his savings. The representative said, reputational harm could be difficult to quantify. Samuel looked at him. "I repaired wheelchairs in that hall for free for 15 years, he said. After your bank told people my name was on Travis Miller's debt. Men I carried through doors wondered whether I was a liar. You tell me how to quantify that." No one answered. Peter did not let the silence become sentimental. He moved to remedies: immediate written release, correction of any credit reporting, confirmation that Samuel was not liable, payment of attorney fees and related costs, compensation for harm, cooperation with law enforcement, internal procedure changes, notice to regulators where required, a written apology. Bank counsel objected to the word apology. Peter smiled without warmth. Then we can discuss it in discovery. The written release arrived first. Samuel Brooks was not liable for the Miller Lawn and Stone loan. Any adverse credit reporting would be removed or corrected. Collection would cease permanently. Samuel read the letter at his kitchen table. For months he had imagined relief as something dramatic. He thought he might shout, cry, call everyone, or sleep for 12 hours. Instead, he sat very still. His hands rested on the paper. The house hummed quietly around him. The refrigerator clicked. Socket, the stray cat who had gradually decided the garage was his kingdom, scratched at the back door. Samuel opened the door and let the cat in. "You're late," he said. The cat walked past him as if released from liability too. The criminal cases moved on their own timetable. Travis faced charges for identity theft, forgery, fraud, and theft related to the equipment. Gary Phelps faced charges tied to falsified loan documents and facilitation. Ricky Holt took a plea. Carol Vance lost her notary commission and faced administrative penalties, though her criminal exposure remained less clear because negligence is not always charged the way harm feels it should be. Samuel learned that justice is not a single door opening. It is a corridor with bad lighting, too many offices, and people asking you to repeat painful facts because the form in front of them has a blank space. He gave statements. He reviewed documents. He answered questions from prosecutors. He sat through a preliminary hearing where Travis looked smaller than he had in the kitchen, wearing county-issued clothes, and the expression of a man hoping pity might do what denial had failed to do. Travis did not look at Samuel until the hearing ended. When he did, Samuel saw fear, shame, and resentment all fighting for the same face. Samuel felt sorrow. That surprised him. He had expected anger to be clean by then, but sorrow remained because once, not long before, Travis had eaten fried chicken at his table and promised to do things right. Sorrow did not change the facts. After the hearing, Darlene approached in the hallway. Her eyes were red. She looked older than Samuel remembered. "Please," she said, "he's my son." Samuel leaned on his cane. He had started using it after stress made his hip pain worse, though he hated admitting that. "He was my family too." Darlene began to cry. Samuel did not comfort her. He did not punish her either. "Tell him the truth is the only thing left that can help him," he said, and walked away. Travis eventually accepted a plea. It did not satisfy everyone. Some people thought the sentence too light. Some thought it too harsh. Samuel no longer believed punishment could be measured cleanly from the outside. Travis would lose years, money, reputation, and the easy ability to walk into family rooms as if charm were enough. Whether he changed would be his burden, not Samuel's project. Gary Phelps fought longer. Men like Gary often believe wrongdoing committed in business language should be judged less harshly than wrongdoing committed in alleyways. He insisted he had been careless, not criminal. But the emails, the altered verification notes, Jasmine's statement, and Ricky's testimony narrowed the space around him. He lost his job first. Then his license to work in lending became impossible. Later, charges and civil penalties followed. Buckeye Community Bank issued a public statement after the settlement. It acknowledged that verification procedures had failed in the Miller Lawn and Stone loan, that Samuel Brooks had not signed or authorized the guarantee, and that corrective actions had been taken. It thanked Mr. Brooks for his patience. Samuel hated that last sentence. Patience was what institutions called your suffering after they were done causing it. But he clipped the statement and placed it in the metal box. Beside it, he placed the first collection letter, the forged signature page, the VA clinic record, Jasmine Reed's note, the gas station still, and the final release. The metal box had once contained bills. Now it contained a map of how a lie was built and dismantled. The town did what towns do after truth arrives. It rearranged memory. At the pharmacy, the clerk said she had known all along the bank must be wrong. Samuel said nothing. At church, the woman who had told him family was precious said she had prayed for him every day. Samuel believed she might have. He also remembered the tone of her first advice. At the diner, men criticized Travis so loudly that Samuel left before finishing breakfast. Their anger on his behalf sounded too much like an attempt to erase their doubt. Earl Whitcomb finally apologized at the Veterans Hall. He did it badly at first, then properly. First attempt came near the coffee urn. "Guess that joke I made didn't age too well," Earl said, forcing a laugh. Samuel looked at him. No. Earl's face reddened. He stared into his coffee. Around them, 3 men went quiet. Then Earl set the cup down. "I'm sorry, Sam. I was wrong to say it. Worse, I was wrong to laugh when I didn't know. You didn't deserve that." That apology cost Earl something. Samuel could see it. Pride leaving a man is not graceful. "I accept," Samuel said. Earl nodded, relieved. "But don't make me prove my honor to you twice." Earl swallowed. "Fair." That was how trust began to return in pieces, not as a flood. The settlement did not make Samuel rich. Newspapers, if they had cared enough, might have used that word because they liked simple arcs. Veteran wins money. Bank apologizes. Nephew punished. But real repair is less photogenic. Samuel paid Peter Lang. He replaced the savings he had dipped into. He fixed the back step properly, hiring a younger man because Maria threatened to write him up for stupidity if he climbed around with bad knees. He bought a new set of tires for the truck. Then he asked Maria how much it would cost to run a workshop at the Veterans Hall. What kind of workshop? Signatures, credit freezes, co-signing, loans. Not being stupid. Maria raised an eyebrow. "We're not calling it not being stupid." "Why not?" "Because victims already feel stupid. We don't help liars by naming the program after their favorite weapon." They called it Clear Signatures. The first session drew 9 people, mostly veterans and widows, who came because Samuel's name was attached and because Maria promised coffee that was not hall coffee. Peter Lang volunteered to speak once a month. Jasmine Reed, now working at a credit union, agreed to explain what a careful banking process should look like. Denise Warren came quietly to the 3rd session and sat in the back. Samuel saw her but did not call attention to her. Maria opened the first meeting with a stack of sample forms. "Family is not a financial control system," she said. "Love does not replace documentation. If someone needs your signature, you are allowed to take the paper home. You are allowed to call a lawyer. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to be slow." An old veteran named Carl raised his hand. "What if they say it's urgent?" Maria smiled. "Then it can urgently wait while you read." People laughed, but the laughter had relief in it. Samuel did not speak until the end. He stood beside the table, one hand resting on the back of a chair. "I almost paid," he said. The room went silent. "I almost paid because I was ashamed, not because I owed it. Because I wanted the letters to stop and people to stop looking at me sideways." That's what these people count on. They count on us being too proud to ask questions and too tired to fight answers we know are wrong. He looked at the sample forms. A signature is not love. A loan is not proof of faith. And anyone who rushes you through paperwork is not protecting you. Those sentences traveled farther than he expected. A widow came after the meeting with a folder of documents her son wanted her to sign. Peter reviewed them and found a home equity line she had not understood. A veteran brought in a notice about a credit card opened in his name by a grandson. Jasmine helped him start a dispute. Another man admitted he had given his debit card PIN to a niece because she bought groceries for him. Maria did not shame him. She helped him change the PIN and set up a safer arrangement. Samuel realized then that what happened to him was not rare. It was merely usually quiet. Clear Signatures became a monthly program, then twice a month. The credit union donated printing. Peter found law students willing to help under supervision. Maria made checklists in large print. Samuel fixed the hall's projector when it overheated during the second workshop, because even justice needed maintenance. He kept attending court dates connected to Travis when necessary. But he stopped organizing his days around the man who had betrayed him. One letter came from Travis after the plea. It was handwritten, not neat. Travis said jail was worse than he expected, which Samuel thought showed a lack of imagination. He said he had been scared. He said he had debts. He said Gary made it sound easy. He said he had always looked up to Samuel and then hated him for being steady. He said he had worn Samuel's jacket because Ricky needed to look older and because he thought nobody would notice. That line made Samuel set the letter down, because he thought nobody would notice. Not because the jacket was worthless. Not because the signature was close enough. Because Samuel himself had become in Travis's mind a category of person the world did not examine closely. Old, quiet, trusting, useful, forgettable. Samuel finished the letter later. At the end, Travis wrote that he was sorry and asked whether Samuel could forgive him someday. Samuel placed the letter in the metal box, but not with the evidence. He placed it in a separate envelope labeled Travis. That distinction mattered. Evidence belonged to truth. Travis belonged to grief. He did not write back after 3 months. When he did, the letter was short. Travis, your apology is a beginning only if your truth becomes complete. Do not reduce what you did to pressure, debt, or bad advice. You used my name, my documents, my coat, and my trust. You let people think I was a liar. If you want forgiveness someday, cooperate fully, repay what you can, and stop treating shame as something other people should carry for you. Samuel Brooks, he mailed it before he could soften it. Life did not become simple after that. Samuel still woke some nights expecting the phone to ring. He still checked the metal box more than necessary. He still felt anger when a bank commercial talked about community trust. He still disliked signing anything on a tablet because the smooth glass made his name look less like his own. But he returned to the Veterans Hall. He repaired wheelchairs again. He let Socket the cat sleep in the toolbox drawer, despite claiming he did not approve. He visited Elaine's grave and told her the story in pieces, not because he believed she needed the information, but because marriage leaves behind conversations the living person continues out of habit and love. At the grave, he admitted the thing he had not admitted to Maria. I was scared they were right, he said. Not that I signed it. I knew I didn't. I was scared it wouldn't matter. The wind moved through the cemetery flags. That had been the deepest injury. Not the money. Not even Travis. It was the discovery that truth without proof could be treated as noise when spoken by an old man. Samuel had believed his reputation was a kind of armor. Then one forged document showed him how thin armor becomes when institutions prefer paper to people. But the answer was not to reject paper. The answer was better paper. Honest paper. Records kept by those who knew liars counted on confusion. VA appointment logs, notary journals, surveillance clips, teller statements, certified letters, credit disputes, timelines. The truth had not won by shouting. It won by becoming harder to ignore than the lie. Nearly a year after the first bank call, Samuel stood outside Buckeye Community Bank. He had avoided the building since the settlement. Maria had offered to go with him. He said no. Not because he wanted to be brave alone, but because some doors needed to be walked through by the person who had been made afraid of them. Inside, Jasmine no longer stood at the teller line. Gary's office had a new nameplate. Denise Warren saw Samuel from across the lobby and came toward him. Mr. Brooks, she said. He nodded. I won't pretend this is easy, she said. But I am sorry. I should have listened harder when you first came in. Samuel studied her face. It did not have the polished carefulness he remembered. It looked tired. Maybe that was better. Yes, he said. You should have. Denise accepted it. We changed procedures, she said. In-person guarantor verification, dual review for elderly guarantors, mandatory escalation on signature disputes, video preservation registers. Should have been there before. Yes, Samuel said again. She looked down. I know. He had not come to absolve her. He had come to deposit a check from the settlement into an account he considered moving elsewhere, but had not yet moved because decisions made from anger can still be decisions, controlled by harm. As he turned to leave, Denise said, The Clear Signatures program. We have customers asking about it. Send them, Samuel said. It was not forgiveness, it was usefulness. For Samuel, that was sometimes more honest. The final public moment came at the Veterans Hall in November, near Veterans Day, when the town council presented a certificate to clear signatures for community service. Samuel did not want a certificate. Maria told him to stand still and accept it because visibility could protect the next person. The hall was full. Veterans, widows, bank customers, church members, even people who had once doubted him. Jasmine stood near the back. Peter Lying leaned against a wall. Denise Warren came without sitting in the front row. Earl Whitcomb brought coffee and did not make jokes. The councilman spoke about fraud prevention, elder dignity, and community resilience. Samuel disliked community resilience as a phrase. It sounded like something Gary Phelps might have said if he had worked in public relations instead of lending. But he listened. Then Maria pushed him gently toward the microphone. Samuel had not prepared remarks. Prepared remarks made him sound like someone else. He looked at the faces. "I used to think being careful meant keeping my own papers in order," he said. "I still think that, but I learned something else. Being careful also means not letting shame make you quiet when a paper is wrong." He paused. "Most of us in this room were raised to pay what we owe. That's good. That's honorable. But there are people who know that about us and will use it. They will call it family. They will call it urgency. They will call it trust. They will say, 'Sign here, it's just paperwork.' They will count on you not wanting to look difficult." He saw several people lower their eyes. "Be difficult," Samuel said. The room was silent. "Be slow. Ask questions. Take the form home. Call somebody who isn't trying to benefit. And if somebody uses your name without permission, don't pay for quiet. Make noise in writing." The applause came slowly, then fully. Samuel did not enjoy applause the way Travis had once enjoyed being admired. But he accepted it because it did not belong only to him. It belonged to Maria's legal pad, Jasmine's memory, Peter's letters, the VA clinic timestamp, the gas station camera, and every person in the room who had almost signed something too fast. Afterward, a young veteran approached while Samuel was packing extension cords. "Did it make you hate him?" the man asked. "Travis?" "Yeah." Samuel wrapped the cord carefully over elbow and hand. "Hate is heavy," he said. "I'm too old to carry things that don't help me walk." "So you forgave him?" Samuel looked toward the door, where late afternoon light fell across the hall floor. "Forgiveness isn't pretending the lock wasn't broken," he said. "Sometimes forgiveness is fixing the door and deciding who gets a key." The young man nodded, though Samuel was not sure he understood yet. Some lessons require age to finish explaining them. That winter, snow came early. Samuel kept a shovel by the back door and pretended he would use it until Maria arranged for volunteers to clear his walk. Socket grew fat and shameless. The metal box under the desk became too full, so Samuel bought a second one. Elaine's photograph remained beside the sink. On the anniversary of the first bank call, Samuel opened the box one more time. He took out the forged signature page and placed beside it a new flyer for clear signatures. At the top, Maria had printed, "Your name is not a favor." Samuel smiled at that. Travis had thought kindness would trap him. Gary Phelps had thought procedure could be bent if the file looked complete. Ricky Holt had thought a jacket and a quick signature could turn one man into another. The bank had thought documents were stronger than doubt. The town had thought honor meant paying whatever paper demanded. They were all wrong. Kindness had opened Samuel Brooks's door. Dignity helped him close it when the wrong man walked through. And the truth, once written down clearly enough, did not shout. Sat on the table, page after page, until every lie had to answer it. Samuel Brooks did not become famous. He did not become rich. He did not become hard in the way some people expected betrayal to make a man hard. He remained careful. He remained useful. He remained sometimes lonely, sometimes angry, sometimes amused by a cat who slept where sockets should have been. But he was not buried by the loan. The loan had tried to turn his honor into a weapon against him. Instead, it became the reason other people learned to guard their names before someone else spent them.